The parking garage was silent. Silent until the roar of an engine broke through the concrete stillness. A black SUV came tearing around the corner, its headlights cutting through the shadows like knives. Its tires screamed against the polished floor. And in its path, frozen small, fragile, stood a girl. For a single heartbeat, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then movement. A man in a gray janitor's uniform lunged forward. His boots slammed the ground, echoing in the cavernous space. He shoved the girl out of harm's way just as the SUV swerved. Metal screeched against concrete. The vehicle slammed into a pillar, then jerked violently in reverse, disappearing into the shadows. Silence returned, except for the man's ragged breathing. On the floor lay the child, unconscious but alive. The man cradled her against his chest, his weathered face illuminated by a flicker of the overhead security camera. For an instant, his eyes betrayed everything: fear, relief, and something else, something broken inside him. By morning, the company issued a decision. His employee badge carried just one word: terminated. The first rays of dawn spilled over the city, catching the glass towers in a pale, golden glow. Inside a modest apartment, John Marlowe moved quietly, careful not to wake his daughter. The kitchen walls told their own story: crayon sketches of smiling suns, stick figures holding hands, a house with flowers in front. And in the middle, a framed certificate, maintenance technician, earned after years of night classes. His badge of survival. 5 years ago, John had worn tailored suits instead of overalls. He was a rising star at Hawthorne Financial, the kind of man who could spot a mistake in numbers that others ignored or hid. He thought uncovering fraud would earn him gratitude. Instead, it cost him everything: his career, his reputation, even his marriage. His wife left for Europe, leaving their 10-year-old daughter, Emma, in his care. So he rebuilt, piece by piece, for Emma. This morning was like all the others. He cracked eggs into a pan, buttered toast, and sliced an apple into neat fan-shaped pieces. His small ritual of control, of normalcy. The smell of breakfast filled the air. For a while, life seemed steady, safe. But safety has sharp edges. The night shift at Luminara Technologies was a thankless one. John fixed what others broke: rattling pipes, flickering lights, temperamental heating systems that responded only to his patient touch. His co-workers admired his skill. To the executives, though, he was invisible, just another gray figure blending into the machinery of their glittering empire. And truth be told, invisibility suited him. It kept him and Emma safe. Until yesterday. Until the locker notice. Termination. Effective immediately. No explanation. No severance. Just 2 guards, men who'd shared coffee with him on countless nights, escorting him out of the building as though he were a criminal. Now, with his bank account dwindling and Emma's asthma medication running low, dread pressed against his ribs like ice. He sat at the kitchen table, scanning his bank statement, each number cutting deeper than the last. His thoughts spiraled. Rent, prescription, school supplies. How long before it all collapsed again? A knock at the door cut through his panic. Sharp, precise. When John opened it, the sight on the other side didn't match his world at all. A woman stood there, tall, immaculate. Her charcoal suit perfectly tailored. Her dark hair was pulled into a severe bun. Her gaze cool and piercing. The kind of presence that seemed to command rooms, not knock on apartment doors. "I believe you were wrongfully terminated from Luminara Technologies, Mr. Marlowe," she said, her voice smooth, steady. "May I come in?" Suspicion warred with curiosity. Still, he stepped aside. Her eyes swept across the apartment in one efficient glance. Emma's drawings, the certificate, the second-hand furniture. Then she sat on the edge of the sofa, as though its worn cushions were beneath her. She placed a single business card on the table. No company name, no title, just a number. "My name is Sophia Caldwell," she said, "and I need someone with your particular talents." John stayed standing. "How do you even know me?" Sophia's lips curved, but not into a smile. "I make it my business to know what others miss. Observational skills, discretion. People who've been wronged make the best allies." Her words landed like pebbles in a pond, rippling outward with dangerous implication. She explained quickly. A USB drive had gone missing from Luminara the night before John's termination. She wanted him to retrieve it, delivered to her without looking inside. In exchange, she placed an envelope on the table. $5,000. John's hands tightened around it, feeling its weight. Rent, medicine, a lifeline. Why me, he asked. Why not hire a professional? Because professionals leave traces, she replied calmly. You already belong there. Your fingerprints, your DNA, they're expected in that building. And people who've lost everything tend to be more motivated. Her eyes held his, sharp as glass. She was telling him more than she should, or perhaps less than he needed. The front door creaked open. Emma returned from a friend's house, her backpack bouncing at her side. She froze at the sight of the elegant stranger sitting in their living room. Sophia's gaze shifted to the child, and for a heartbeat, just a heartbeat, her icy composure faltered. Your daughter, she said softly. She has heterochromia. Emma blinked, her mismatched eyes, one green, one blue, shining in the light. John stepped instinctively closer, his body shielding Emma. How do you know I worked at Luminara? Sophia touched a silver pendant at her neck. 2 stones, one green, one blue. As I said, I know things others miss. Her hand brushed his as she passed him the envelope. For a fleeting moment, he felt a spark, a tremor beneath her polished mask. Then it was gone. When the door closed behind her, John opened the envelope fully. Inside, among the bills, was a press badge for a charity gala at Luminara. Real holograms, real RFID chip, no amateur job. Whoever Sophia Caldwell was, she had power. And secrets. That night, John dreamed of falling, always falling, reaching for something just beyond his grasp. He woke to Emma, standing by his bed, her small chest heaving, inhaler clutched in trembling hands. He helped her breathe, listening to the rasp transform into steady air. And in that moment his choice was made. For Emma, he would walk into Luminara again. For Emma, he would walk into fire. Who is Sophia Caldwell really? Why does she care about a janitor's particular talents? What secret hides on that missing USB drive? And why did her mask slip when she looked at Emma? The night of the gala arrived like a storm dressed in silk. Luminara Technologies' glass atrium glittered beneath chandeliers that seemed stolen from palaces. Camera flashes burst like lightning as photographers circled the room, hungry for perfect angles of perfect people. Crystal glasses clinked. Laughter echoed. Screens the size of small houses displayed charts of profit margins and smiling executives shaking hands with charities. John Marlowe stood in the middle of it all, stiff in a borrowed suit that smelled faintly of mothballs. The press badge Sophia Caldwell had given him swung against his chest, gleaming with authority he did not possess. He felt like an imposter, a ghost who had wandered into a masquerade. Around him, men in tailored tuxedos leaned toward women in shimmering gowns. Diamonds flashed at throats and wrists. John's reflection in the marble floor creased suit, scuffed shoes polished too quickly, looked like a man from a different world. Still, he moved forward. He had to, for Emma. He kept his eyes low, letting the tide of bodies carry him deeper into the atrium. Each step seemed louder than it should. Each security guard's glance lingered too long. The air smelled of perfume and expensive champagne, but beneath it he detected something else. Tension, faint but sharp, like static before a storm. On the screens, mounted high above the crowd, the company's leadership portraits appeared one after another. Names, titles, achievements. And then, her. John froze. Sophia Caldwell, but not Sophia Caldwell. The name beneath the portrait read Alexander Reynolds, CEO of Luminara Technologies, cover star of Fortune's 40 Under 40. A woman who doubled the company's market share in just 18 months. The elegant stranger who'd sat on his shabby sofa and placed an envelope in his hand was one of the most powerful women in the tech industry. John's stomach dropped. His pulse hammered. The realization spread through him like ice water. She had lied. Lied about her name, her role, her reason for finding him. And she hadn't just lied casually. She had manipulated him. Why? Why him? He barely had time to breathe before overhearing 2 men in dark suits. Voices low, but urgent. Marcus Green, one muttered, head of security. Found dead this morning. Car. Gunshot. They're calling it a suicide. The other shook his head grimly. He was in charge of the garage surveillance system. The words snapped into John's mind like puzzle pieces locking in place. Marcus Green. The garage. The night before his termination. The missing footage. Coincidence? Or something much darker? John's chest tightened. Every instinct screamed that this was no suicide. He moved carefully, slipping away from the glittering main hall into the shadows of service corridors only he knew, quiet arteries of the building where executives never tread, but where he had spent countless nights fixing flickering lights and rattling pipes. The hum of machinery greeted him like an old friend. Here in the bowels of the building, he knew every corner, every sound, every smell. At the security office, the faint glow of monitors cast long shadows. John's fingers trembled as he navigated through digital archives. Footage, more footage, until he found it. A gap. 20 minutes missing. The exact night before his termination. The screen stared back at him, black and empty, as though the building itself was hiding its sins. In the desk drawer, beneath a tangle of pens and sticky notes, he found a crumpled slip of paper. Handwritten. Reynolds Garage. Level 3. 11:42 p.m. Taped under the drawer. His searching hand brushed against metal. A small unmarked key. Next to it, a half-empty prescription bottle for anxiety medication. Evidence of sleepless nights. Of a man unraveling under pressure. On the desk calendar, an appointment circled in red. A meeting with Alexander Reynolds. Scheduled for the morning after the garage incident. A meeting Marcus Green never lived to attend. John's breath quickened. He slipped the note and key into his pocket just as the door behind him creaked open. He turned sharply and nearly collided with a man he recognized at once. James Whitmore, Luminara's CFO. Tall, immaculate suit, a stillness about him that felt predatory. His eyes swept over John like a scanner, calculating, dissecting. "You don't look like our usual press," Whitmore said evenly, straightening his tie. "Who exactly did you say you're with?" John's mouth went dry. He opened it, grasping for an excuse, a name, a lie. But before he could speak, the atrium erupted. Alarms blared. A mechanical voice thundered overhead. "Security breach detected. All guests prepare for verification." Guards moved methodically, checking badges, demanding identification. A wave of controlled panic rippled through the glittering crowd. And then she appeared. Alexander Reynolds. Not Sophia Caldwell. Not a shadow in his apartment. The CEO herself, radiant and untouchable even amid chaos. But she was not alone. At her side walked a young girl, no more than 9. Her arm bandaged, her steps uneven. And when her face lifted to the light, John's heart stopped. One blue eye, one green. Heterochromia. Just like Emma. The girl's gaze found him across the room. She froze. Recognition flared in her mismatched eyes. She knew him. Before John could process the impossible, Whitmore's finger shot out like a spear. "That man doesn't belong here." Guards converged, boots pounding, radios crackling. Across the atrium, Alexandra's eyes met John's. And for a single heartbeat, just one, her mask slipped. He saw shock, fear, something human. Then, deliberately, she turned away, as if she'd never seen him. The next second, John was on the ground, knees pinned by guards, his borrowed suit tearing at the seams. The world spun with shouts and alarms, faces blurring above him. Somewhere in the distance, the girl's voice rose. "I know him." But the sound was swallowed by chaos as cold steel cuffs clamped around John's wrists, and darkness swallowed everything else. Why did Alexander pretend to be someone else in John's apartment? Why did her daughter recognize him so vividly? Was Marcus Green killed for what he knew? And why did Alexandra, who once begged him for help, turn her back when security closed in? The room smelled of bleach and stale coffee. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, humming like angry insects. John Marlowe sat at a cold metal table, his wrists still raw from the cuffs. His suit jacket hung awkwardly off one shoulder, torn during the scuffle at the gala. A cracked plastic chair supported him, though every muscle in his body screamed with tension. On the wall, A clock ticked with deliberate cruelty. He wasn't sure what hurt more, the sting of humiliation or the image burned into his mind. Alexandra Reynolds watching from across the atrium and turning away. The door creaked. Detective Laura Simmons stepped inside, mid-40s, sharp-eyed, every movement deliberate. Her gray blazer carried the faint smell of cigarette smoke, though her hands never touched one. She didn't need props to look in control. She flipped open a folder, sliding papers onto the table with slow precision. "Interesting timing, Mr. Marlowe," she said, her voice calm but edged. "You're fired from Luminara. Show up at a private gala with a fake press badge? And oh yes, Marcus Green at a security ends up dead the same day." Her eyes lifted, pinning him. "Care to explain the connection?" John's throat was dry. "There is no connection." Simmons leaned back, unimpressed. "You've got a history, don't you? Whistleblower at Hawthorne Financial. Exposed fraud, stirred the pot, cost people millions. Some call it integrity. Others call it pattern. Digging, meddling, causing trouble." John forced himself to hold her gaze. "Exposing the truth," he corrected. His voice was steady, but his hands beneath the table trembled. Simmons arched an eyebrow. "The truth tends to get people killed, Mr. Marlowe." The clock ticked louder. His pulse matched it. Then an unexpected sound. The door opening again. He turned, and his heart lurched. Alexandra Reynolds entered. Not Sophia Caldwell. Not the mysterious visitor with a mask of control. This was the CEO, framed in sterile fluorescent light. Still immaculate. Still composed. But her posture betrayed strain. Her shoulders rigid under invisible weight. Her presence shifted the air in the room. Even Simmons sat straighter. "I need a moment with him," Alexandra said. Her voice carrying authority honed in boardrooms. Simmons frowned. "This isn't your—" "It is my business," Alexandra cut in smoothly, "and I'll take full responsibility." After a tense pause, Simmons rose. She gathered her folder with deliberate reluctance. "Don't make me regret this." With that, she left, the door closing like a gavel. For the first time, Alexandra let her corporate mask slip. "You were supposed to find the USB," she hissed, pacing like a caged panther. "Not parade yourself into the gala and get caught." John glared at her, anger sharpening his words. "You lied to me. You called yourself Sophia Caldwell. And your daughter," his voice broke slightly. "She knew me. She recognized me." Alexandra froze, her composure cracking. She sank into the chair across from him, exhaustion pouring through her frame. For the first time, she looked human. "Her name is Emma," she whispered. "She was in the parking garage that night." John blinked. "The night of the SUV? She snuck down to leave a gift on my car. A Mother's Day surprise." She said a man saved her. Alexandra's eyes searched his face. "She described you." The memory of that night surged back. Squealing tires, headlights, the desperate shove. John swallowed hard. "I heard it. I ran, but I never saw who was driving." Alexandra leaned forward, her voice taut with desperation. "Don't lie to me. Emma remembered you. And Marcus Green, he swore the footage showed something more. But then the file vanished. He said the system malfunctioned." John's head spun. "If you believe me, why fire me?" "I didn't." Her voice trembled. "James Whitmore handles personnel." He said, "Budget cuts." But now she shook her head. "Now I don't know who to trust." Silence pressed down between them, broken only by the hum of the lights. Finally, she leaned closer, her eyes raw. "Help me find that USB, John. I'll reinstate you. Promotion. Benefits. Security for Emma and your daughter. My little girl thinks you saved her life. I need to know if she's right." Her words trembled with something more than business, something personal. For a long moment, John couldn't breathe. The air between them seemed charged, distrust, yes, but also something else. A fragile current of connection neither wanted to acknowledge. Her hand brushed his on the table. Not deliberate, not calculated, just instinct. His skin burned at the contact. Then she withdrew, pulling her mask back on, her walls rising again. "My driver will take you home," she said firmly. We never had this conversation. Outside the station, the night air felt sharper than before. The city lights blurred in the distance. A black sedan waited at the curb. Beside it stood James Whitmore. "Get in," he ordered. His voice was smooth, his tone absolute. We need to talk about what you really saw that night. The door opened. The car's interior smelled of expensive leather, subtle cologne, and something colder, like danger waiting to be named. As John slid inside, the city slipped past the tinted windows, distorted and distant. Whitmore leaned back, his profile calm and predatory. "I know your type," he said quietly. "The kind that digs where they don't belong. You think you found leverage. Let's not waste time. What do you want for the drive?" John stared at him, caught between disbelief and fury. Whitmore smiled faintly. "250,000. Cash. For your silence." Or his eyes glinted like steel. "Your daughter's safety. Choose wisely." The burner phone pressed into John's palm a moment later felt heavier than any weapon. As Whitmore's car disappeared into the night, John stood alone, the city roaring around him, every sound too loud, every shadow too deep. In his pocket, the unmarked key Marcus Green left behind cut against his leg like a reminder. Some truths demand a price, and his was coming due. What does the key unlock? And what did Marcus Green die trying to reveal? Why is Whitmore desperate to buy John's silence? What dark secret ties the death of Alexandra's husband to the SUV in the garage? And can John trust Alexandra? Or is she just another mask hiding a deeper betrayal? The storm rolled in with fury. Rain lashed against the windshield as John Marlowe guided his car along the winding road. Lightning split the sky, casting brief snapshots of the world in harsh white. Branches swayed like skeletal hands. The lake below churned dark and violent, its surface broken by sheets of rain. At the edge of shore, the Reynolds family lake house loomed, glass and steel jutting against nature's wildness, a monument of power standing defiant against time. But tonight its floor-to-ceiling windows glowed faintly, like the watchful eyes of something alive. John parked, his knuckles tightened on the wheel. A second car pulled in moments later. Alexandra stepped out, a hood shielding her face. Even beneath the storm, her presence commanded space. But there was something different now. Her mask had cracks. The lines of fatigue, the faint tremor in her hands, betrayed the truth. She was terrified. They entered together. The lake house was too quiet. Rain pounded the glass walls, thunder rumbled overhead. But inside, nothing. Just the echo of their footsteps on polished concrete. And then he appeared. James Whitmore, waiting, calm, a predator in his natural habitat. On the dining table before him sat a laptop, its glow harsh against the storm-dark room. Beside it, a small black USB drive, the object that had cost Marcus Green his life. "Welcome," Whitmore said smoothly, gesturing with a sweep of his hand. "Fitting, isn't it, that we end where it all began?" Lightning lit the dock outside. For a heartbeat, John could see the weathered wood where William Reynolds, Alexandra's husband, had drowned, or been drowned. Alexandra's voice trembled despite her effort to steady it. "What are you doing, James?" "What I've always done," he replied, clicking the laptop awake. The screen flickered. Surveillance footage filled the air, cold and unforgiving. The lake house, the dock, William Reynolds, alive again in grainy monochrome, arguing with Alexandra, his gestures wild, her face pale, and then he stumbled, fell. The camera lingered on Alexandra frozen at the edge, precious seconds ticking away before she finally dove after him. The footage looped, each replay slicing deeper. Alexandra staggered back, her face ashen. "No, this isn't the truth." Whitmore's lips curled. "It's the truth the board will see." Hesitation, neglect, a wife who let her husband drown. "The company will eat you alive." John's eyes narrowed. The footage was wrong. Too neat, too precise. His analytical mind caught it. The shadows, the timestamp, the cut. "This has been edited," he said sharply. Whitmore's cold smile widened. "Very observant. That's why you're dangerous." Another click. The screen changed. This time the garage. The black SUV barreling toward Emma. John lunging, pushing her clear. Whitmore behind the wheel, distracted by a phone pressed to his ear. Alexandra gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "It was you." Whitmore's composure didn't falter. "William discovered financial irregularities. He confronted me at this very lake house. Things became heated. His tone was almost bored. I erased myself from the footage, left Alexandra holding the bag, the perfect scapegoat. He glanced at John. Then you ruin it. You were supposed to be invisible, a ghost. But Green saw you push the girl. He connected the car to William's death. And so, Green had to go. John's stomach turned. The truth hit with the weight of stone. Marcus Green hadn't killed himself. He had been silenced. Whitmore's hand reached into his jacket. When it emerged, it held not a gun, but a syringe. Do you know how easy it is to modify asthma medication? He asked lightly, twirling the needle between manicured fingers. Untraceable. The grieving single father makes a mistake with his daughter's inhaler. Overcome with guilt, he takes his own life. The syringe gleamed, catching the laptop's glow. Whitmore stepped closer. I offered you money, John, but you chose her instead. Poor investment. The struggle came fast, violent, desperate. John lunged, knocking the syringe away. It clattered across the floor, spinning until it stopped beneath the table. Whitmore moved like a predator, his strength honed, precise. He slammed John against the wall, his forearm pressing against his throat. Alexandra scrambled, searching the room, her hands shaking as she grabbed for anything, a bottle, a heavy ornament, a weapon. The USB drive skidded to the ground in the chaos, sliding just out of reach. Whitmore pinned John, his voice low, venomous. You think you're a hero? You're nothing but a broken man with nothing left to lose. The syringe reappeared, poised above John's neck. Lightning flashed. Thunder cracked. And then, a gunshot split the storm. Whitmore froze. His eyes widened. He staggered, then collapsed, blood spilling across the polished concrete. Behind him stood Detective Laura Simmons, her service weapon still raised, her stance steady as stone. Figured you'd try something like this, she said evenly, holstering the gun. That's why I followed. She kicked the syringe away, cuffing Whitmore as he writhed, gasping, his eyes burning with rage and disbelief. Game's over, Simmons muttered. But John knew better. The game was only changing. Alexandra retrieved the USB, her hands trembling. She stared at it as though it were both salvation and curse. Files open, numbers, records, evidence of Whitmore's embezzlement, proof of William's murder, proof of Green's cover-up, and more, footage from the garage, raw, uncut, not just Whitmore driving, not just John saving Emma, but Alexandra, walking up to the crashed SUV, speaking to Whitmore, nodding, making a deal. The blood drained from John's face. You knew, he whispered. You saw. You fired me to keep me quiet. Alexandra's eyes glistened. She looked at him, not as a CEO, not as a manipulator, but as a woman crushed by her own choices. I did it to protect the company, she whispered, to protect Emma. I never thought it would go this far. John's jaw clenched. Betrayal carved itself deep in his chest. Simmons' voice cut through the silence. This goes into evidence. She extended her hand. Alexandra hesitated. The USB felt heavy in her palm, an object that could destroy everything she had built or set her free. Her eyes flicked to John's, pleading, and for a moment, the storm outside seemed quieter than the storm inside the room. Will Alexandra give the USB to Simmons or bury the truth to save herself? Can John forgive her betrayal? Or is their bond already broken beyond repair? What will Emma learn when she discovers her mother's complicity? And what kind of ending awaits John? Redemption or another fall into darkness? 6 months later, the courthouse steps glistened with rain. John Marlowe stood just outside, the autumn wind tugging at his coat. Reporters swarmed the plaza, their microphones thrust forward, cameras flashing like lightning. The trial of James Whitmore had become a spectacle, murder, embezzlement, betrayal at the highest levels of Luminara Technologies. And John had been at the center of it all. The USB drive had done its work. It revealed everything. Whitmore's financial crimes, Marcus Green's murder, William Reynolds' death. It showed the garage footage, John saving Emma, Whitmore driving the SUV, and Alexandra Reynolds making her silent, devastating bargain. It was the kind of truth that didn't just illuminate. It burned. Luminara survived. But Alexandra didn't walk away unscathed. She resigned, cooperated with authorities, became both savior and traitor in the eyes of the world. She avoided prison, but her empire was gone. John exhaled, his breath clouding in the cold air. He testified that morning. His role was finished. Yet the weight in his chest refused to lift. A small voice pulled him back. "Daddy." Emma ran toward him, her backpack bouncing, her smile wide. At her side was Lily, her mismatched eyes bright as the sky after storm. The two girls were inseparable now, bound by scars and resilience. John bent, letting Lily crash into his arms, her laugh muffled against his chest. The ordinary sound filled him with something deeper than victory. Ordinary, safe. He would never take those words for granted again. Later that afternoon, he saw her, Alexandra. She waited outside Emma's therapist's office, dressed simply, her hair loose. No polished suits, no diamond mask, just a woman stripped of her empire, carrying only the fragile weight of motherhood. Their eyes met. Electricity hummed between them, the memory of what they had shared and what they had broken, alive in the silence. "She's doing better," Alexandra said quietly. "The nightmares are less frequent." John nodded. "Lily told me you're moving." "Boston," she confirmed. "My sister's there." Fresh start. Silence stretched, awkward, heavy. Finally, John asked the question that had haunted him since the lake house. Was it worth it? Giving up everything for the truth? Alexandra's gaze dropped. She considered her answer carefully. "I lost the company. My reputation. Some days I think I lost everything." Her voice trembled. Then she looked at him, her eyes softer. "But Emma knows her father's death wasn't my fault. She knows the truth. That's something I can live with." She reached into her bag, pulling out the silver pendant with 2 stones. One blue, one green. "Emma wants you to have this," Alexandra said, pressing it into his palm. It was William's gift to her. 2 colors, like her eyes. She says it belongs to the man who saved her. Their fingers brushed. For a moment, possibility flickered between them. "We could try again," John whispered. "Start over, without all the lies." Alexandra's eyes softened, but sorrow lingered there too. "Some debts can't be repaid. Some trust can't be rebuilt," she said gently. "What I did to you, it can't be undone. The girls need us to be civil, maybe even friends. But anything more," she shook her head, "that foundation is already cracked." She touched his face once, tender, final, then stepped back. The autumn breeze carried the scent of endings. That evening, John tucked Lily into bed. She noticed the pendant glinting in his hand. "Why does it have 2 different colors?" she asked sleepily. John sat on the edge of her bed, watching the stones catch the lamplight. "Because sometimes life isn't one thing or another," he said softly. "Sometimes the most valuable things are complicated." Her eyes drooped shut. He brushed her hair from her forehead, his chest tightening with a mix of love and loss. From across the street, movers loaded the last boxes from Alexandra's house. Tomorrow, someone new would arrive. Life would move on. But the past, its shadows and truths, would never leave. As John sat by the window later that night, his phone buzzed. A single message appeared. "Thank you for saving Emma, and for saving me from becoming someone I couldn't recognize." No signature. No farewell. He stared at it, thumb hovering over the screen. But he didn't reply. Some conversations have no ending. Some wounds have no closure. And some truths, like the pendant in his hand, contain both beauty and pain. We carry them forward not because they're perfect, but because they're real. And in a world of lies, reality, however broken, is the only solid ground to stand on. John closed his eyes, listening to the soft rhythm of Lily's breathing from her room. Outside, the storm had passed. The city exhaled. For now, that was enough. What do you think matters more, protecting the people we love, even if it means living a lie or telling the truth, even when it destroys everything?